For years, people have been obsessed with the idea of talking to the dead. For centuries now, people have been developing new theories and technology to help mankind link the threshold of life and the afterlife together through communication. Centuries ago, people would rely on prophets, priests, priestess, or oracles to speak to the dead. In other cultures, people use meditation, or forms of it, to have an eye-opening conversation with past loved ones. Many centuries ago, people also began to use mirrors as gateways to speak to the dead. And it is this kind of belief that may have brought upon the legend of Bloody Mary. In the Middle Ages to the Renaissance, people would go to spirit mediums who mastered scrying to communicate with the deceased. Then, psychics began turning up left and right, claiming they can speak to the dead. Other psychics even developed a form of communication with the dead, dubbed automatic writing. As time went by, people then assumed they could use audio recording devices for EVP sessions, and at the turn of the 21st century, people began to get more creative with their tools of conversation with the dead. One such example being the Charlie Charlie Challenge, and another being the free ghost talking app available on almost any smartphone. However, what most seem to forget is one of the easiest ways to communicate with the dead is through the Ouija board. Before we go any further, I want to point out that I know the Ouija board isn't a forgotten technique to contact spirits by any means. I mean, one could argue that the board is more famous today than it was back in the day, although not inherently for the same reason. By that I mean, more people fear the board today than people did back in the day. Anyway, I merely wanted to point out the fact that a lot of people go out of their way to create new ways to talk to spirits, or spend a lot of cash on EVP devices to talk to spirits, instead of simply using a Ouija board. Not to say there is anything wrong with that, it's just an observation. Enough of my ramblings, let's get to the history behind the Ouija board. So as a general US history lesson, the American Civil War was a war fought from 1861 to 1865 on American soil between the Union and the Confederacy, which ultimately set all slaves free. It was also the war that most American citizens died in, specifically in the thousands, totaling to 620,000. With that in mind, it should be noted that after the end of the war, people were grieving because of the mass deaths that accompanied it. Many wanted to talk to their loved ones that passed during the war, and according to many, death touched everyone in a way that had never been felt before in the US. Anyway, after the large amount of deaths, people turned to spirit mediums to try and contact the dead. On an added note, mediums started marketing their services across the country, essentially profiting off everyone's grief. A lot of families affected by the war also began to use spirit boards, like the Ouija board, to attempt to communicate with their loved ones. It should also be noted that the term Ouija board wasn't even the board's original name. Far from it. The board wouldn't acquire its name until it was coined by Helen Peters. Helen Peters was a medium whom in 1890, while playing with the board with her brother-in-law Elijah Bond, asked it what they should call it, to which it responded with Ouija, which according to the board meant good luck. Peters was the first to put a patent on the Ouija board, but the business was eventually bought by an American entrepreneur named William Fuld. William then began to market the board nationally, through catalogs like Sears. One of the catalogs reading, Ouija, the magic game, remarkable, interesting, and mystifying game, great mirth and making game for parties, apparently answers questions concerning the past, present, and future. The board's popularity soon began to skyrocket. As it did, and more shared their interest in getting one, the board's profit also began to skyrocket. This led many of the early investors to want to highlight their role in the creation of the Ouija board. However, Peters didn't want anything more to do with the board. Apparently, Peters started to grow disdain for the board, after it caused some complications with the family. When some of the Civil War heirlooms Peters' family acquired went missing, they asked the board who took them, and it replied with, "A member in the family." At some point, half of the family believed it, while the other half claimed it was lying. This caused conflict amongst the family, and soon tore the family apart. After that, Peters sold all her stock to the company, and to her dying day supposedly warned everyone not to use the Ouija board, or to trust it. William Fuld also had his share of troubles with the board. In 1919, he and his brother had a dispute over some shares in the company, which eventually led William to cut his brother out of the business. The brothers, since the dispute, decided to never speak to each other again. Anyway, That year was a surprisingly good year for sales, due to the flu epidemic and the First World War. The board's popularity once again skyrocketed because people wanted to contact their lost loved ones. The following year, in 1920, the board even received great praise from the New York Times, where they compared the popularity of the board to that of bubblegum. Moreover, in 1927, the Baltimore Sun reported that Fold made at least $1 million on sales of the board alone. He then started to build many factories to increase production, and built one of the largest at the time, which was 3 stories. I should also add that he did this because the Ouija board told him to do so, saying, "Prepare for big business." Unfortunately, Fold wouldn't be able to witness his success. In 1927, he went up to his factory's roof to supervise the replacement of the flagpole. According to the newspaper, the Baltimore Sun, he was standing near the edge of the roof, grasping an iron support of the pole to steady himself. The workman said, when the support suddenly pulled away and he toppled over backward. He allegedly managed to prevent his fall, somewhat, by clasping onto the edge of a windowsill. Curiously, the window mysteriously closed, at full force no less, and sent Fold flying downward. On impact, he managed to survive, but he broke his ribs. When the ambulance arrived on the scene, they claimed that he was expected to live, although he wouldn't make the trip. While in the ambulance, the driver hit a bump, which forced one of Fold's ribs to shoot upwards and puncture his heart, killing him instantly. His family would continue to run the business until it was sold to the Parker brothers in 1966, where it would later be sold again to Hasbro, who now, to this day, owns the patent. With the history done, I suppose it is time to explain how to use the Ouija board. To play the board, it is actually relatively simple. To start off, you need to get a Ouija board. You can find them relatively easy in almost any toy store aisle. I got mine at Toys R Us, but you can find them at Walgreens, CVS, Walmart, or even Target, usually for around $10 or more. Or you can make one, which on its own is relatively simple too. To make a Ouija board, simply grab a piece of poster paper, or a piece of cardboard about the length of a poster paper. On your chosen canvas, write yes and no on the left and right top corners of your canvas respectively. Then, along the center of the board, write the alphabet from A through Z in 2 rows of 13 letters. Next, write the numbers 0 through 9 under the alphabet in the following order: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 0. Finally, finish the board by writing goodbye alongside the bottom of the board. You can use a coin, bottle cap, or wine glass as a planchette. Now that you have your board, let's start the seance. To actually begin is quite easy. Grab your board and 1 friend or more. Technically speaking, you can use the board alone, but it is not recommended you do so for your own safety. More on that later. Gather on either side of the board if you have 1 friend, and in a circle if you have more. Every participant should place their hand on the planchette, and one of the participants should be designated as the medium for the seance. In other words, they will be the one asking the questions. Once everything is set and ready to go, let the spirits know you are not trying to offend them, and then proceed to ask, are there any spirits that would like to speak? Remember to emphasize spirits, because you don't want to take your chances should you accidentally summon a demon. If you get no response, use the planchette and form 3 circles in the center of the board. If you don't get a response then, try again later. If the planchette moves to yes, then feel free to continue the seance. Have your designated medium ask the questions only, and keep asking questions until you are done using the board, or done talking with this specific spirit. When you are done, always make sure to close the seance properly by saying goodbye. Do this by sliding the planchette 3 times across the goodbye. In general, that is the simplest way to use the board, but there are some added rules you should take note of. On the board, it comes with 3 specific rules that are outlined, as they are the most important. They are: never play alone, never mention God, and always say goodbye. Along with these specific rules, there are 22 more. The following are some rules that are generally agreed upon that should be followed. Also, just on a side note, when researching this video, I got these from Tumblr, so take their credibility as you will. Number 1. Never utilize the Ouija board alone. Number 2. Never utilize a Ouija board if you are depressed, stressed, irritated, upset, bored, furious, sad, afraid, shocked, overconfident, or drowsy, as you could let a demon into your life. If you get a demon, blessing the house can make the demon worse than it already was. Number 4. Don't give the Ouija board to someone else to give them the problems. Never utilize the Ouija board if you think it is just a game. Number 5. Never let the spirits count down through the numbers, or go through the alphabet, as they can get out of the board this way. Number 6. If the planchette goes to the 4 corners of the board, it implies that you have reached a wickedness soul, or an evil presence in your life. You ought to never utilize a Ouija board in the event that you are a doubter or an atheist, as you could get a wicked soul, or the devil. Satan's not evil! Number 8. If the planchette tumbles from the Ouija board, a soul will get detached. Number 9. In the event that the planchette over and over again makes a figure 8, it implies that the wicked soul is in control of the board. If you get a wicked soul, rapidly flip around the planchette and use it that way. The board must be closed correctly, or evil spirits will remain behind to haunt the operator. Number 12. Never use the Ouija board when you are ill. This will make you vulnerable to possession. The spirit of the Ouija board creates winds for the utilizer, causing him to become more and more dependent on the board. This is called progressive entrapment. Number 14. Evil spirits contacted through the Ouija board will endeavor to win your confidence with flattery. Number 15. Never upset the spirits. Number 16. Never utilize the Ouija board in a graveyard, or a place where a terrible death had occurred, or you will bring forth malevolent entities. Number 17. In the event you lose your planchette, you can use a coffin nail instead. Number 18. Sometimes an evil spirit can inhabit a board. If this transpires, no other spirits will be able to utilize it. Ouija boards that are disposed of improperly may come back to haunt the owner. Number 20. A Ouija board will scream if you try to burn it. People who hear the scream have less than 36 hours to live. Number 21. There is only one proper way to dispose of it. Break the board into 7 pieces, sprinkle it with holy water, then bury it. Number 22. When disposing the board, arrange the letters and numbers into a circle, so whatever is trapped within the circle can't escape. Number 23. If you place a pristine silver coin on the board, no evil spirits will be able to come through it. Number 24. Never leave the planchette on the board if you aren't using it. Number 25. 3 things never to ask the Ouija board are: never ask about God, never ask when you are going to die, and never ask where the gold is buried. Now that you know how to actually play with the board, I thought it'd be fun if I shared a few Ouija board experiences from others. The following stories are from Reddit users Turtleshell Magic, GothSci29, and Arabella. My 2 best friends, M and L for this story, and I played the Ouija board at M's house. It was going fine until M asked the spirit how it had died, and it said, murder. She asked how it had been murdered, and it said, not I. It gave its name as something older that I can no longer remember, and gave us a date in the 1800s. It started to get heavy. The whole room felt different, and the little thing on the board was ripped out of our hands and went across the room. We stopped playing immediately after that. M's mom died of cancer a week later, very suddenly, and nobody knew. Probably a coincidence, but L's mom was hospitalized for a serious drinking problem not long after that, and then mine had an emergency hysterectomy that same week. I have since then experienced things that I don't think I would have without this experience. Voices, a dark shadow, footsteps. I wonder if I'm haunted sometimes still. And it's been 9 years. Once, right after my ex had lost his friend in an airplane accident, we took the Ouija board out to use it. She was very present. She was very scared and alone and desperate for communication. We stopped using it, and immediately, I felt this presence in the corner of the room. I closed my eyes to take a deep breath. Suddenly, the pointer started moving rapidly around, and going too fast to spell out the words. It was terrifying. Since then, I refused to use the Ouija board ever again. When I was around 12 or 14, one girl brought a Ouija board to my friend's birthday/slumber party. I was skeptical, but also really curious about it, as I had never used one before. We took turns asking questions, and I figured someone else was moving it. The other girls were pretty creeped out, but I wasn't, at least not until they answered a question for me that nobody else knew the answer to. To this day, I can't explain how that answer appeared, or any of the other paranormal experiences that happened after we put the board away. I truly believe that we contacted something, and it stuck around. Should you still be this far along in the video, and are still determined to use the board, I think it is fair to explain that there are some consequences. Really, it boils down to 3. One of the most life-threatening consequences to using the board is death. If you don't dispose of the board after a bad session, like if you contacted a malevolent spirit or demon, there is a high possibility of that demon or spirit causing your death. Moreover, like in one of the rules stated earlier, if you set the board on fire and hear a scream, then you will die within 36 hours. However, if you do manage to live, but again, don't close the session properly, there is a high probability you will get haunted. A spirit or demon will attach itself to you, and you will be stricken with bad luck, and you may even condemn yourself to be forever haunted. Lastly, the best outcome. If everything goes smoothly, then your only consequence is a good one. You will receive answers to lingering questions, you may find out the backstory of a ghost or two, and better yet, you'll be alive to tell a tale. So without a doubt, the Ouija board is terrifying. That is, if it is real. Just to answer the question, I am personally not sure if the board actually works. Many people swear on their lives that they've seen it work, that they've experienced it working, but I still haven't. A friend of mine and I even took it to a local park that is reportedly haunted to test it out. Take a look. I don't have to Alright, so me and my friend Edward are going to be playing with the Ouija board. I know it's in the day, but the Ouija board doesn't necessarily say anything about playing in, like, the night. Oh, like the punch. Wait, where's the thing? What is this? How to assemble the planchette, begin your quest. Gently place the planchette in the center of the Ouija board. Gather closely around the board if you dare. Each player place 2 fingers lightly on the planchette. Okay. Oh, here are the don'ts. Never use the Ouija board if you think it's just a game. Whoops. Never use the board alone. Never use the Ouija board in the cemetery. Oh, that's what you told me last time. Yeah. And I didn't believe you. Never leave the planchette on the Ouija board when you're not using it. And never forget to say goodbye.
Okay, put this on.
Okay, so take out the board. Help. Okay. I'll just put it like that. And just hold it on that side. So how exactly does this work? I haven't done my research yet.
I think you just ask.
Just ask a question?
Is anybody there?
Okay. Is anybody there? I guess not. I think it's like if you don't get a response if you don't get a response after like 2 or 5 minutes, you have to start spinning it in circles. So get your clock. Is anybody there?
I have my watch.
Okay. We'll just do the thing now. Start circling in circles.
Oh wait. I think yeah.
Is anybody there?
What if this was like a cemetery and we didn't even know?
Then we'd be screwed, right? But then something would happen.
Like in Ouija?
I mean, people have died at this park.
Yeah.
There's legends about this park too. No.
That's like pornography.
Pornography? It's pedophilia. Obviously. I don't know, are we doing something wrong?
No, it probably just doesn't work in the daylight.
It never specifically said, though.
I know, but it's like the ambiance.
The ambiance helps it. We need a candle.
And I don't think spirits come out in the morning, as we've seen from horror movies.
I don't know. It had things in like the daylight. But technically, it isn't.
It
like,
is not.
It's not a ghost.
An alien.
It's an interdimensional
That's
creature.
Sci-fi. This is like technically, to some people, not considered sci-fi.
Okay, we'll give it another shot some other day then. Because clearly it's not working here.
Yes.
Let's do it one more time.
Okay.
We'll do it the first thing. We'll just ask, is anybody there? And then we'll do the circle thing. Is anybody there?
You're like, what the fuck are these people doing? Okay, I think. It throws itself.
Please, I need the views. Okay. I guess we'll put her away and then just like...
I want to take a picture. Oh! Okay, we'll say goodbye even
We'll
though
say
there's,
goodbye.
like,
Okay, yeah. Alright.
Goodbye.
We have to do it three times then say
Okay.
goodbye. 1, 2, 3.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. As you can see, the board didn't work for us. Although we did use it during the day. However, in my defense, the board doesn't specifically say it has to be used at night, and it was filmed before we knew any of the other rules. If we do try it again, it will be at night, and if I can get that video by the end of October, I'll post that too, or whenever I get it. Anyway, despite people claiming the board actually works, there may be a solid theory, or two, as to why that may be. The first theory is that it is simply a hoax, and one person in the group is manipulating the planchette to make it seem like someone else is moving it. I mean, if you think about it, it would explain why it is recommended for more than one person to play with the board. Yes, it is believed that you need more than one person for your own safety, but it is also believed that you need 2 people or more to increase the psychic link between the participants and the other world. Which kinda sounds like an excuse so someone in the group could move the planchette. In that case, if you had a group of friends that were completely honest, then the planchette wouldn't even move an inch. Then a new question arises. What about people who claim to have still gotten results, and who claim their friends were completely honest and trustworthy? Well, the answer to that question lies in the second theory, the ideomotor effect. For those that don't know, ideomotor actions are unconscious, involuntary motor movements that are performed by a person because of prior expectations, suggestions, or preconceptions, according to an article on the ideomotor effect on criticalthinking.org.uk. In other words, because you expect the planchette to move, your mind will involuntarily force your hands to move the planchette, making it so it seems like the planchette is moving on its own, since you aren't aware that you're pushing it. Automatic writing, dowsing, and the Ouija board have been credited to this phenomenon. In the end, despite whether you believe that the board works or not, there is no denying its place in pop culture. Since its emergence, it captivated many people. In addition, it's easy to see why so many people are afraid of the board, with movies like Ouija, Ouija Origin of Evil, The Exorcist, etc. All these films illustrate the dangers of using the board, and ultimately demonstrate the horrors of it in full force. Alongside movies, the board has garnered a lot of books, short stories, and popularity. In fact, it even made its way into video games, like Until Dawn. To close, I have to be quite honest. I really don't know if the board actually works. I think I still need to try it for myself, maybe at least 3 more times. However, one has to wonder, not all videos on YouTube of the Ouija board gone wrong or actually working are fake, right? On the other hand, how scary can a board meant for 8-year-olds really be? With that lengthy video finally done, let me leave you with this little factoid. The building where Helen Peters first played the Ouija board, and first coined the name, is now a 7-Eleven, located at 529 North Charles Street in Baltimore, Maryland. A plaque stating this fact is even posted on the site of the store.